Coming up on this episode of Don't Panic, we've got technology news you can use, including, is Netflix too expensive and is it hurting their subscribers? We're going to talk e-gambling and trading accessories for your Counter-Strike. We're also going to talk about Pokemon Go, the trend we all wish were dead already, and even more technology news. Stick around, because Don't Panic's going to start for you right now. This is Don't Panic, episode number 137, recorded July 18th, 2016. On Rhapster, eGambling, and the Netflix slide. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Don't Panic, the technology podcast that will make technology great again and won't even need a convention to do it. I'm Sean Jennings, joined as always by the two men at the top of our ticket, Colby Rabidou and Dan Miller. Gentlemen,
howdy.
What's going on?
Yeah. Not much.
We both got back from some vacations.
I know. You two guys, you're out traveling the world. We had no shows last week. I was like, didn't know what to do. And you guys.
Did you go out in your Miranda over there, at your apartment complex?
I saw the pool. I didn't go in it, but I walked by it. It looked refreshing. Didn't help because I was sweating, and I was like, I should have gone to the pool. I saw Ghostbusters. That was probably the most exciting thing.
Oh, how was it?
Honestly, it was good. I liked it. And this is a tough comparison. It reminded me a lot of Episode 7. Not necessarily in, like, it's really great, but in that it wasn't supposed to replace the original. It is a really great companion to the original. It's got all of the inside references, but still creates a new story with new characters. Like, it was that sort of feeling. I wouldn't quite say it's as good as Episode 7, but it was really funny and enjoyable, and as long as you don't expect it to blow the original out of the water, you'll like it. And certainly if you like any of the, like, Bridesmaids kind of spy Melissa McCarthy movies, or like Kristen Wiig or any of those folks, you'll enjoy the movie.
Cool.
Yeah, I want to see it.
And the effects are really, really good. I was actually really impressed. If you can see it while it's still in theaters, the effects were really good. So,
I have a question. Did someone have Ghostbusters in the movie draft, or did we not do Ghostbusters?
We absolutely did. I was actually just pulling it up because I updated them today.
Sadly, I'm no longer in second place.
No, no, you're plummeting, Matt. Surprisingly. Honestly, Secret Life of Pets is going to be one of the highest grossing movies of the summer. No, Mike had Ghostbusters, but he only had a $46 million opening weekend. Not great. So probably on track to hit 100, but we'll see because there's some big movies still coming.
Gotcha.
Yes, Dan, as you mentioned, not that we'll take a lot of time on it, but that Colby is currently in fifth place, though he still has
Mention that.
Well, he's got two movies left, and they're big ones, Star Trek Beyond and Jason Bourne. So, plenty of room there. Mike is in fourth. He has two movies left, Ice Age, Collision Course, and Suicide Squad. Dan is in third, and he still has not a big movie left. He has a movie left, Pete's Dragon.
I think it's entirely possible that I will end in last place.
No, I don't think you will, because Matt is done. He is not going to make a single penny, so you really only need $60 million. No, because he'll make some more off Secret Life, but you probably need about $80 million out of Pete's Dragon to top him.
Oh, I also have Pete's Dragon.
You have Pete's Dragon.
Did that other movie come out yet?
Which, Free State of Jones?
Yeah.
No, that's been out for a while. That made a whopping, you ready for this, brace yourself, $20 million. If it makes you feel any better, that is not the low. Dan, you had the lowest grossing and third lowest grossing movies of the summer. Free State of Jones and Hardcore Henry. Colby, you had the second lowest grossing in Pop Star.
Did I also have the highest grossing one, though?
No, Finding Dory grossed $445 million. So that's really what killed everybody is I had the $445 million Finding Dory, the $360 million Jungle Book, the $154 million X-Men.
Brutal.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. But like I said, we've still got Star Trek and Jason Bourne. We've still got Ice Age and Suicide Squad. We got big movies left. So you never know. Because Star Trek could do 200, Jason Bourne 2. No, you're still short. Yeah, I think I've won. But that's we gotta keep the suspense going. So, but outside of that, enough about my boring life. You guys, Dan? We'll start with you. How was the? Where were you? Thailand?
In Scotland.
Scotland, same thing. How was Scotland?
It was great. We showed up. Two two crazy things happened. First, I'll start with like the main point of the trip was we went on a 5-day hike. We walked 50 miles. So that was the first day was sort of like you wanted to die. That day was sort of like because we we went. So there's this like set route we're following, and each day you're supposed to get to at least a certain point. So the first day, by about 2 in the afternoon, we had gotten to the point we were supposed to get to. But my friend was like, "Oh, Dan, we need to make better time than this." I don't know why I agreed, but I was like, "Okay, let's keep walking." So we walked 15 miles that day, and I thought for sure as we like set the tent up that night that there was no way I was gonna walk the next day, like at all. Like I wouldn't be able to stand. But luckily, we slept for 12 hours and it was fine. So that was a lot of fun. Surprisingly relaxing. After about a day and a half with one other person, you run out of things to talk about. So you're just sort of walking in the wilderness, kind of in silence, in solitude, but not really. It was pretty meditative. So crazy thing that happened. This trip had a theme, a surprising theme, which was very, very spicy food. Where my friend, we walked into this place in Edinburgh called Wings, which is like a really cool chicken wings place. They have like a Doctor Who themed table, a Star Wars themed table, a Marvel table. And she saw that they had a wall of flame where you have to take this challenge, 6 hot wings. You can eat them in however much time you want, but you have to eat all of them, and then you have to not throw up for 30 minutes, and you can have no aids, like no water, no milk, no sour cream.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah, she did it. But it was intense. It was not a pretty sight that later on, but she made it through the 30 minutes. So then we're walking in like the middle of nowhere in the Highlands. We pass through this like 4-house town, and there's a restaurant there, which is amazing. And it's a restaurant on a boat. And we walk into this boat, and they have a wall of flame, 8 people on it. My friend's like, "Oh, I just did one of these in Edinburgh," and he was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Well, you could try mine." She's like, "Okay, yeah." And he goes, "Well, eat lunch first, because you won't be able to taste anything after you have the sample." So, so we eat lunch. She's like, "Okay, let me try the sample." And he goes, "Okay, it's just a cracker. It's about, half an inch wide. I'm going to put my chili on it. But first, you need to sign a waiver." And she was like, "Why?" It's like, "Well, I have this special license to import this pepper that's hotter than a ghost pepper. So you need to sign a waiver in order to eat anything made with it." And she was like, "Okay, no. Thank God, because I would not want to walk in the condition that a human is in after eating something that spicy for like another 8 miles." So here are the stats. How many people do you think? So 7,000 people signed the waiver of all time. How many people do you think went on after signing the waiver? No, 7,000 people signed the waiver and tried the cracker. Of those people, how many people do you think attempted the challenge afterwards? We already know that 8 succeeded. We already know that. 3 of which were women.
I would say 100.
Colby, do you have a guess?
10.
40.
Oof.
Wow.
That was the right call.
Yeah.
By Price is Right rules, I totally won.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so that was our trip generally, and then one really funny specific story. We said we would come back if we would come back to Scotland when we weren't walking. And this guy, he was so good at getting people to do this. So we said that, and he goes, "Yeah, that's what all the Americans say, but there's still none of them on the wall."
Ooh. But see, it's at that point you got to defend America.
That's
Man up
what
to do
he was
it.
trying to do.
Yeah.
Defend America's honor.
Yeah. Like, there's no honor left to defend. Was what.
If you need to have
ourselves.
if you need to have your lawyer standing by to check the legal waiver, you probably should pass. That's the right call. Dan, let me ask you, okay? Because believe it or not, I believe you are the person I know who has traveled to Europe more than anyone else I know. I think that might be the case. You do it not like super regularly, but you've done it many times.
Yeah.
And usually for long stretches.
Yep.
I have to go to Europe for 10 days next week. Any advice? What is the Dan Miller Europe? I'm going to the Netherlands.
Yep. I already know the answer.
Okay. What is it? I'm dying to know.
Switch to T-Mobile.
Switch. Oh, I
Yeah.
have my work phone, so they take care of that for me, which yes is very convenient.
Yeah. So I was gonna say in Scotland, it's pretty rural. I had cell phone service and usually 3G like the whole way through T-Mobile, and in like populated areas, I had free LTE because they upgraded their free tier for international T-Mobile to LTE, like high speed. It's fantastic. You just going to the Netherlands?
Yes, probably.
I don't know. I think I'd have to think about it.
All right.
A lot of my tips are T-Mobile. TripIt is fantastic if you have like complicated transfers and you have to coordinate landing at an airport, going to a hotel, going to a dinner thing.
I think I just got a text from a live viewer.
Oh, really?
Where in Europe are you going? Kaylee McAvoy wants to know.
There's a thing for this, Kaylee.
Yeah, Kaylee, if you're on your computer, you can call us on Skype at Coffee and Beer TV.
No, isn't there a chat thing in Facebook Live?
Well, she can comment. There isn't. I don't think there's a live chat. I don't really use Facebook Live. There's a
I think the comments become.
Brian's watching. Oh, look at that. That's fantastic. Eat. She says, eat space cakes.
Oh, Stroop waffles? Did you have Stroop waffles?
Great. I have had Stroop waffle.
Okay, good.
Did I tell you about the last time I went? I was in Amsterdam for one day, and there's so many restaurants and so many cultures and all this stuff, and I had no idea what to eat. So I panicked.
Yeah.
And there was the pancake house, and I'm like, shit, I know what a pancake is. I got this. I swear it was like the size of a large pizza. This pancake, and it was covered in so much honey and sugar. And I had never been so sick in my life after eating that giant pancake. It was the most miserable night of my life in the hotel room. I was so nauseous. I'm not going to make that mistake again. Lesson learned.
Stay in Amsterdam longer would be my advice.
No, sadly, I don't get to stay in. So I have to, for work, I'm about 2 hours south of Amsterdam. First I'll be in Sittard, near Geleen. And then I have to go what would be about an hour and a half west of Amsterdam, which is Bergen op Zoom, which is where our office is. So, but I'll have a car, so I don't, and I'll have the weekend to do something. So we'll see.
Yeah, go back to Amsterdam. I haven't been, so I'm very jealous, and there's a lot of stuff to do.
There's, people are giving me so much stuff to do, and I've got some locals there who I work with who want to do stuff. So who knows? I just, we'll see.
Do those things. If locals are telling you to do something, just do it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I think that's good.
Because that's when you get to do something that very few people, or very few Americans will ever do, and that's really cool.
I think that'll be the case. Now, Colby, you were at the beach.
Yeah, what beach were you at?
It was my parents rented a house in South Kingston, Rhode Island. So it was on the water, so it was, I guess, a private beach, but it is very close to Green Hill Beach. And it's in the area that is referred to as Green Hill usually. It was pretty fun. I didn't do anything really except like lounge around at the beach. which was nice. It was a nice reminder of like a vacation versus a trip. Like when we went to Europe last summer, that was a trip. Like there's tons of stuff to do and connections to make, and you come back tireder than you started. And vacations are the opposite, I think, where you come back relaxed and perhaps sad to be leaving. But yeah, it was good. The weather was pretty nice. The water was a reasonable temperature for the Atlantic Ocean, the northeast Atlantic Ocean. Yeah,
Excellent.
indeed.
Well, it's good to have everyone back. Is there any other chit chat we would like to partake in before we move on to the meat on this chicken? Whatever that means.
What are we on now if
are
we're
we
not on the meat of the chicken?
Well, the meat
We're,
of the
like,
chicken
fucking the feathers?
is the news. That's the this
Right,
this
but
is
so
the,
what is the preamble on the chicken then?
We are the little bacon wrapped shrimp appetizers that they carry around on the tray.
Some
Damn
say
good.
those are, yeah. someone say
That's
those are
not
better
the
than
worst
chicken.
hors d'oeuvre. Yeah.
No, that's it. And now we're getting you psyched up for
What is the
dinner.
worst hors d'oeuvre though?
The worst hors d'oeuvre.
I think there's so many that are really bad. Like thinking back on my hors d'oeuvring experiences, so many. Like how many times have you said no to those plates when you're at the fancy one? You're just looking at it like, no, that's too much work. That's the first thing I always think. The ones that are too much work.
I don't like the cheap ones. Like when you go to a place that's not as fancy and it's like, a pig in a blanket that was frozen and they clearly just microwaved. And
They didn't even bother to make their own pig in a blanket.
And you're like, at
it's
that
not
point,
good enough for Sean.
just make bagel bites or something and just give those out. I mean, if you're going to do appetizers, you make them. It's not, bacon wrapped shrimp's not hard. You just wrap shrimp in bacon. I don't.
I recently had tuna tartare on a cucumber, which I was not.
Ooh.
I didn't think it was that good personally. And I'm not a person who would object to like raw fish or anything like that. I just didn't think it was. I thought it was weird. The cucumber didn't go with the tuna, in my opinion.
All right.
Fair enough.
We'll have to leave. I'll submit that as a topic up for debate.
There you go. And of course, we're streaming live on Facebook. So if you're watching on Facebook, comment on your least favorite appetizer. And we might talk about it on the show.
Sure.
Hors d'oeuvre. Yes, exactly, because we're fancy. Very cool. All right. Well, why don't we continue on to the news? We've got a few stories in here to talk about. While we're getting psyched up for that, two things. One, what story would you like to talk about?
Pokemon Go.
Oh, God damn it. All right, we'll talk about Pokemon Go. While I introduce that, Colby, you want to try your video and see if your connection's gotten any better?
Sure.
And we will see if Comcast decides to cooperate.
Oh
It
my.
looks great on my end.
No, but you sound really crusty on our end. That's all right. We've seen enough of you, Colby. Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh my goodness, it's like a remote from a war zone. It's late '90s CNN all over again.
Oh, wait. How do we not have the story of the Turkish president FaceTiming into CNN during the coup? How is that not in our rundown?
I try not to get too political, but we can talk about that if you'd like.
I mean, I just thought that was like such a sign of the times that.
Well, I mean, honestly,
Here's CNN, like the pre-internet, like communication revolution, 24-hour news cycle around the world, and the president of a major country is broadcasting to the nation via CNN, via FaceTime, into the woman's cell phone. My favorite part, and I tweeted this, or retweeted somebody said this, was when the person's friend, like the reporter's friend who's holding up her cell phone, texted her, so that like the notification drop down came over the president's face. Amazing.
yeah. I mean, we've had a couple weeks of that, to be honest. I mean, that's the... we had Facebook live streaming a police officer shooting a suspect. We've had all kinds of even just today. We had the first day of the Republican convention, and you tune on to CNN, and they've got commentators talking about news from a few hours ago, and you go on Twitter and on Periscope, and the news is happening in real time. So I think we've seen a lot of that in the last few weeks, certainly.
So what are newspapers and stuff supposed to do? How do we? Or I think newspapers are fine. I think people understand that newspapers are a synthesis of what happened, and they're not interpreting but giving context to things. But something like CNN, where they're basically relegated to an intermediary between FaceTime and Periscope, how do you have a cable news network in 2025?
I think you're right. I honestly would say newspapers, in my opinion, over the next 5 years, may be in a better place than a cable network, because I think we're moving. We kind of swung away. We're moving back that pendulum back towards long form reporting, because I think we got away from that for a bit. But even today, I was reading Huffington Post, not a traditional news source. They had a fantastic Trump piece that they had spent months putting together. This long history, huge piece, very fascinating reading. Something you couldn't do on Twitter or on Periscope. So I think there's a lot of value in that. But I think
on CNN.
Or on CNN. But I think that's the point where, because of television, you have to fill all the time, and you're on a single channel, that you don't have the flexibility of being able to quickly flip something on, of being the one person who retweets everyone else, and so you're kind of correlating the news. You lose the speed factor that I think newspapers can get away with because they're doing those long-form reporting stories. So you're right. It is an awkward in-between, and it'll be curious to see how they respond.
Okay. Anyways, Pokemon Go.
Pokemon. Now I gotta ask, you guys play Pokemon Go?
No, I haven't tried it.
I installed it while I was in Scotland, and for some reason it worked, despite the fact that it wasn't supposed to have been released in the UK. So I've played it. I can start talking immediately. I don't know if you want to keep going.
I don't know shit about it, so...
You haven't played it?
I have zero interest. I know nothing about it. I wasn't into Pokemon as a kid. I don't... I have a life, so I'm not interested, so please, Dan.
I watched my sister play.
I was so into Pokemon as a kid. Pokemon was half of my childhood. Pokemon was a great game. It still is. I think every year I have a weekend where I'm I should get a new Nintendo handheld so that I can play the new Pokemon games. And I think really hard about it for a day and don't do it. Which is probably good. But the strategy's really in depth. You can sink a lot of time into it. There's a lot of stuff to do. So fond memories. So I heard about this was announced a while ago. This Pokemon Go thing. I feel or maybe it wasn't that long ago. But I heard about it. Was kind of excited. Heard that it came out 2 weeks ago or whatever. So I downloaded it. And first of all, this is a bad, objectively, a badly designed game. It doesn't tell you anything. It does the traditional, oh, I'm the Pokemon professor, and blah blah blah. Here's your first Pokemon thing, and then just drops you in. Doesn't explain what Pokemon are where and how you know. Doesn't explain how to find them. Doesn't explain. You haven't done any Pokemon battles yet, which was at least a half the fun of the old games, because that's where the strategy came in. The catching thing was just if you played the game enough, you'd eventually catch them all. So I was just wandering around Scotland on a bus, which was cheating. So I'm on this bus, and we're slowly moving between these stops in the city, and I'm catching all these things. And did you ever play that old iPhone game where you had a crumpled up piece of paper in a trash can? You had to flick the paper into the trash can.
That's old school iPhone.
Yeah, it was the first iPhone game. That's what this game is.
I'm pretty sure I played that on an iPod Touch or something.
Yeah.
In the late 2000s.
That's what Pokemon Go is, except instead of a background that makes sense, it's whatever's in front of your camera. and the Pokemon just sit on some flat field. It doesn't matter what the picture looks like. So you just flick these balls at these Pokemon, and if you hit it, you catch it. Sometimes, I don't know, there might be some random element, or there might not, because nothing is ever explained to me. Okay, so fine. If that's how catching Pokemon works, whatever. But at this point, like, I'm thinking, where do the battles come in? And I haven't actually done this yet, but everything I've read says, like, it doesn't seem like the gym battles are all that in-depth. They're very challenging, but part of the challenge comes from the bugginess of it and how sometimes the gym Pokemon will go down to 1 health and you won't be able to defeat it, and then you just slowly die. So it's just... And if you can't... whatever. I haven't actually done a Pokemon battle, so I don't know. But what I'm saying is, it takes the half of what made Pokemon great, like the really strategic battles, and like choosing how to choosing how to equip your Pokemon with different moves, and you have to think really far in advance about that. And just gets rid of all of that, and all you're left with is flick the paper in the can with a picture.
Do you have anything, like, nice to say about it?
No. Like, a lot of people play it, and people have been mobbing places in New York, so that's kind of cool, but also kind of shitty. But otherwise, like, I don't think it's a good game. And everyone I've talked to, by the way, all these people are crazy about it, like, and I'm guarantee you, they're all going to lose interest in, like, 2 weeks. Like, all these people are walking around, going out with their friends in Central Park to go get the Pokemon. If you press them, they admit, oh, well, it's a bad game, but everyone's doing it, so it's a fun social experience. That's not a good game, then. But so many things are... I can do so many things with friends that are a fun social experience and are also in and of themselves fun. Like, why not do those things instead?
But, and that's the question I want to ask to all of us, which is... In America, there are shitty things that are popular, like Nickelback, and
how popular is Nickelback?
Politician.
I think they were more popular in the past.
Oh, sure. No,
yeah.
they're not as popular anymore.
What's the shittiest thing that's popular right now? Let me think about this.
That is a tough question. That's not Pokemon Go. The Big Bang Theory? I don't know.
Yes.
NCIS?
Yeah.
There's a lot of...
NCIS is pretty
up
bad.
there. But so then that's the question. So assuming... And by the way, before I forget, Dan, are you blue or red?
There are 3 options, right?
Or whatever
the original.
In the Pokemon Go, right? You have to select a team. What team are you?
I selected the blue team, but that also doesn't matter. That, like... What a stupid choice. Here are 3 teams. It doesn't matter which one you pick, but we're going to give you a whole paragraph about what things you might hold dear if you were to be on this team, but it doesn't confer any bonus related to those values at all.
So,
okay.
All I'm saying is, assuming Dan is accurate in his assessment, as far as I understand it, he is, that Pokemon Go is, at best, a mediocre game, and at worst, a buggy shitstorm. Why is it so popular? Is it because of Pokemon nostalgia? Is it because you're competing with friends? Is it the rise of AR? Is it what about this game?
I think
or is it just a fluke, and we're going to see in another month no one's going to care?
I think it's Pokemon nostalgia. If it didn't have Pokemon on it, it wouldn't. No one would care, right? It's definitely mostly Pokemon nostalgia. The other thing is, like, once you get past the Pokemon nostalgia hump, because it's snowballed so much, there's this, like, being cool. Remember, what was it? It was Elo, the social network that everyone had to join for 2 weeks before everyone stopped caring.
Yo?
Yo, someone was just talking about Yo today.
I forget.
That one was particularly bad.
She was standing in a group of people who she knew all had Yo accounts, and she Yo'd all of them, and none of their phones went off. So
at least Yo didn't take itself seriously, though.
Yeah. Oh, and what was that? The gossiping app in Silicon Valley.
Oh, like Whisper or Secret.
Yeah.
Secret.
all of that stuff. Not actually
Yeah.
good products, but hits on some sort of thing that blows up, and inevitably it's going to peter out.
Yeah, and I think for me, as someone who's never played it and merely understands this as a phenomenon, I agree. I think it's a two-part equation, which is Pokemon, and I think the sort of real-world AR nature of it. Because I think if you had just had, Ingress, remember Ingress, and I'll give Brian McMillan credit because he pointed this out on Facebook. Thank you, Brian. Ingress, if you remember, which was Google's sort of AR experiment, which many have stated as Brian has stated, was a much better version of this, at least in terms of quality. Didn't get that much attention. But I think at the same time, if they had just released another generic Pokemon game, I don't know if it would have... I mean, obviously it would have been successful, but I don't know if it would have been as successful because I think... I
think if again, this game is only popular because it had Pokemon in it, and then the only reason it's maintained any popularity it's had is because so many people downloaded it because it had Pokemon in it that you have hundreds of people in Central Park literally running around.
But that's the point. Because if they had all been sitting in their homes playing it, it wouldn't have had the same effect. That's my point.
I don't think that I don't think that the fact that no one downloaded it because they wanted to be in a giant pack of 100 people to run around Central Park, and I don't think that people are going to continue to play it because they can be in a pack of 100 people and run around Central Park for any more than a couple weeks. But if they had released an actual Pokemon game that was good in all the ways that Pokemon is, all the people who downloaded this one would have downloaded that one, and they would have kept playing it for months and months and months.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure I agree with that because, when we were at the beach, my sister was playing Pokemon Go. Like, she would go for walks and catch Pokemon along the shore, the Rhode Island shore. And I don't know, I don't know if my sister would have been interested in it if it was more than that. I don't know. I guess I can't speak for her. Maybe she's watching and she can she can fill us in. But neither her nor I played Pokemon as children, so there's no nostalgia factor for us, right? So I don't know. I don't know. I think there are probably some people who downloaded it because it was a popular thing and were interested, and aren't necessarily people who would play an actual Pokemon game. So
but why
I don't
not?
know.
Here, so I could accept that could be true, that the AR thing brings something new to the table, but why not keep everything else the same? Why not? You have to walk around to see Pokemon, so you can engage in a battle where you have to have a strategy to catch them, and then keep everything else the same. Make it an actually good game. And then it would have all of the benefits of this game and all of the benefits of a regular Pokemon game, except that you can't sit on your couch and play it.
True.
I think, and once again, Brian McMillan, I think we can list as our official video game expert for the show, because we are certainly not that.
Official video game correspondent.
Yes, exactly. I think he is right in pointing out that this is not necessarily a game for the hardcore Pokemon fan, but rather a more casual game for a more casual fan. This is a game that's easy to pick up. It's easy to play throughout your regular everyday life. It doesn't take a lot of time commitment, unless you're obviously really into it. But even just as somebody who's just taking, like you said, you're just a bus across town, you can play this game. He says, quote, "Traditional games are pretty hardcore. There's advanced mathematical formulas on catching a Pokemon in a real Pokemon game." So I think that's an interesting point. I do agree that fundamentally, at its absolute foundation, this is a fad. It is a fad. Do I think people will still be playing the year? Probably. Will it be as popular as it is today? Absolutely not. This is a fad. But I am excited because this is not another Pokemon game. This is not another generic iPhone game. There actually is something unique about this.
You should play it.
Oh, God, no. I hate going outside. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Are you kidding me? No way. So, I doubt that's going to happen. But outside of that, I'm glad people are playing it, and I'm glad people are getting outside, and I hope people play it safe and don't get, run over by cars or harass New Yorkers like Dan Miller, who's just trying to go through his life. As if tourists in New York City are bad enough, I can't imagine them playing Pokemon Go.
No, it was on the morning stream last week. They showed this video of someone, some like apartment complex was complaining about all the Pokemon Go players because they had some landmark or something in the courtyard of the complex. And at first you're like, okay, boo-hoo, get over it. And then the video, imagine your front yard is just mobbed with these people, is standing around, it's, yeah.
I just love hearing stories of people and my sister's watching, she's telling me to just give in that I'll love it. I know her along with other people, they're buying giant battery packs to carry around for their iPhones. I mean, people are they're really getting into it. And you know what? Hey, listen, anything in this world that gets people excited, I'll take it. I'll take it. Because honestly, it's not hurting anyone, except for, as you said, the people who own the homes that are being run over by Pokemon Go players. But other than that, everyone's having fun. So I think it's good. I'm not going to play it, though.
Colby, did you ever play it?
I considered playing it. I guess I might still.
You're like, well, I could download this app.
Well, my sister was actively doing it, so I was like, I could do it too, but I was too relaxed.
Told me I was too relaxed, Rabbit.
maybe this week, now that I'm back into the routine.
All right, it's a deal. Let's keep chugging along here. We've got more news, gentlemen. What else in here has got you excited this week?
I'm still coming off. I think calm down.
Got to take a deep breath. That's all right.
Wasn't there something else we said we wanted to talk about?
I mentioned the e-gambling thing, but then this show will just be only video games, which could be fun.
That's okay. We so rarely talk about them. I don't think it's too bad.
What's the doom and gloom about Netflix?
Doom and gloom about Netflix. This will probably be a quick one. We can chat about this quick and mix it up so we're not too video game focused. Netflix today announced their earnings, which normally would be boring because they just keep going up and up and up and up and making more and more money. Well, cool your jets, because Netflix had a drop in subscriber growth, one of their first drops in quite a while. They added just 1.54 million subscribers, well below the projection of 2.5 million, so that's a gap of about 1 million new subscribers, almost 50% miss, which is pretty bad. That was in Q2 of this year. It caused their stock to drop 14% in after-hours trading. Netflix blamed weak subscriber growth on churn, meaning older consumers exiting. Quote, our global member forecast for Q2 was 2.5 million, and we came in short. Gross additions were on target, but churn... let me skip... Coincident with the press coverage in early April of our plan to ungrandfather longer tenured members and remained elevated throughout the quarters. We think some members perceived the news as an impending new price increase rather than the completion of 2 years of grandfathering. Now, the simple version of that, you may remember, about 2 years ago, Netflix raised their price from, I think, the base package was, I think, $7.99 and went to $9.99 or something like that. But they grandfathered people in for up to 2 years. If you had, that was only for new people coming in. If you were an existing subscriber, you kept it at $7.99. Well, right now, last month or 2 months ago, they finally moved those $7.99 people up to $9.99 and forced them to start paying more. Netflix is claiming that by forcing them to pay more, they actually canceled their account and did not, and saw those customers leaving, which impacted that growth number.
I feel like instead of all of a sudden after 2 years dropping the hammer, they should have just increased it by 1 cent a day for 2 years until, or 10 cents a month or something for 2 years, and so you just ease people into it.
That's fantastic. What a sneaky Colby! Never get put in charge of these things. That's so sneaky.
I mean, I think you could tell people it's hey, we're raising your prices, but you had the old price, so we'll grandfather you in, but you gotta change the meaning of grandfathering, or it's just a gradual transition. Nobody likes a big surprise, right?
No, of course not. Of course not. But that was what interested me about the story. Two things. One, is it actually is that the real reason we saw the drop? But also, two, is increasing the price $2 or $3, do you think really is enough to get people to cancel their subscription? My theory is I end up subscribing to a lot of stuff online, especially because I try stuff, and monthly subscriptions are the hot thing. I always forget I'm subscribed, and it's not until they remind me or I check my credit card statement that I'm reminded. And I think it's actually theoretically possible that Netflix sending out an email to subscribers saying we're raising your price might be enough of a trigger to get someone who's on the fence about it or had just let it kept billing because it wasn't that expensive be reminded to cancel. I just don't know if it's to the tune of 1 million people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the push notification a couple days ago that my price was going up.
And did you cancel your subscription?
No.
No.
It's interesting, and it's dangerous for Netflix because their whole business in terms of the stock market essentially runs on their subscriber growth, because they don't release viewership statistics. All of their money is tied up in owning the rights to this content, and without subscribers, obviously they don't have a business. So. Their stock price is really heavily tied to subscriber growth. And we've talked about this a few months ago, I think, or a year ago, where, as long as it I think this was my prediction for 2016, that Netflix was going to be, remember the tech bubble was going to burst? That was my prediction. That Netflix was going to be one of those companies where they're going to start to see dips. I got to go pull that clip. That they were going to be one of the companies that were going to start to see a slip in subscribers, because at least in the U.S., international, they didn't lose as many. But in the U.S., they're going to start to reach saturation. I really think they're going to get there. And I think that this may be the first crack in that. Really, the takeaway is I'm always right. Or at least that's what I'm taking away from it.
Another classic Sean Jennings, I told you so.
Nailed it. The guy who it took 3 years to predict the iPad Pro, but I got it. I got it. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Hopefully you don't own any Netflix stock. Anything else on that story?
I mean, I guess in hindsight I knew this, but I was surprised to learn that Netflix is a public company.
Yeah, and they were actually their stock shot up over the last 2 years. At one point they were in the $20 and they peaked at 130. I mean, they were a hot stock for a while when they were having these huge subscriber gains in 2014, 2015.
I guess I just totally missed that. I don't know.
Colby, as somebody who has investments doing terribly, be glad that you aren't too interested in the stock market.
My savings are in a bank account. Is that bad?
No, listen, you're not losing money. I will say we actually have a viewer watching the live stream who is a former Citibank investment guy. Believe it or not, a coworker of mine.
Oh wow!
He says analysts still like the stock.
All right.
So don't. Once again, we need that financial disclaimer on the show where do not take financial advice from us. We do not know what we're talking about. But it will be an interesting stock to watch. I don't think 80 is a bad price, which is where it's at about now. But we'll have to see. It's been tough. A lot of companies have been hit. A lot of tech companies have been hit in the stock market. So we'll keep an eye on that. But we are not a financial show, so we're going to move on to another story, which will be what, gentlemen?
I picked the first two. I'm gonna
The
nose goes
first.
even
We've
though
got-
you can't
well-
see me nose gozing.
We've got eGambling. We've got Google Glass Round 2. The PC is back. We've got Rhapsody is the new Napster. We've got the Mini NES. What would you like to talk about?
Alright, let's do Mini NES.
The Mini NES. That'll be a fun one. Sticking with our video game theme for the day, Nintendo, the fine folks at the Nintendo Corporation, are releasing a miniature NES. Now, you may remember the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, originally released, I don't know in what specific year, a long time ago. The 80s? Early 80s? 83 maybe? They are releasing what they're calling the NES Classic Edition. It's actually a tiny version. It's only, it's a smaller version of the NES.
Literally the exact same box.
Oh, the same design. The beauty is you don't have to
Yeah.
put cartridges in this time. No more blowing into the cartridges. Instead,
You
it
do
comes.
still have to plug in the same kind of controllers, though. Is that what I'm seeing?
You do. They have the classic controller, which it comes with, which is kind of awesome and makes sense because you have to control the old games. But it will connect via HDMI to your TV. It will include 30 different games built in, including classics like Castlevania, Donkey Kong, Final Fantasy, Galaga, Kid Icarus, Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2 and 3, Tecmo Bowl, The Legend of
I
Zelda.
thought Super Mario Brothers wasn't. What? I thought that was the Super Nintendo thing. I thought that's why the Super was in it. I could
think-
be totally wrong, though.
I want to say you might be right, but I don't know if some of these were dual released either.
No, it looks like it was Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep. And
Just that
so
good.
It was just that good. Had to have the Super in front of it.
Yeah.
yeah, that was the thing back in the day. Very, very Japanese. No, in addition to HDMI and lack of cartridges, it also features multiple save points, so you won't have to fumble around like you used to with cartridges. The NES Classic Edition will be available on November 11th, just in time for Christmas, at the very reasonable price of $59.99.
Or
That is pretty reasonable.
you could just download all those games on your computer.
You're absolutely right. I
I think you're
absolute-
buying it for the cool, cute, tiny box.
the nostalgia factor. You're 100% right. And even the box it comes in, which you can see in the story, looks like the old. And oh, you know what? Where is that? I actually have the original poster that came with the NES when you bought it. It had this. You're playing with power, which was their slogan at the time. It had pictures of all the NES games. I have
You
mine
have
in
that like
storage.
in your apartment.
I do. I have. It's in storage because I got to get a. It's big. I got to get a frame for it. I want to hang it.
Gotcha.
It was in the dorm room for a little while. Probably sophomore or junior year. I had it hanging up and then I put it away because it is an original. But yeah, I'm kind of excited. I might actually think about getting this. I mean, it's not outrageously expensive. It's $2 a game, really, if you play all of them. And they are all the big ones. I think this is just a really smart idea for a company. We've seen Atari release, the little joystick you can plug into your TV and it's got the games built in. And I know there's a Sega type version of this where you can play old games on a kind of knockoff version of the console. So I actually think it's a pretty smart idea.
Cool.
Can't imagine Nintendo's still making a lot of money off of Dr. Mario, so might as well squeeze a couple dimes out of that while they still can.
Yeah.
Very cool. Although no duck hunt, no laser gun,
Yeah.
which
You
was
need
which
the-
was like the reason
They
to.
could sell the laser gun for an extra $20 so you just plug it into one of those ports.
Although it was.
But isn't it true that you can't use a laser gun in a non-CRT TV?
That's what I was gonna
Boom!
ask. I was gonna say that. I'm like, I don't because of the way it works. That's a really good question.
How does
Yeah, I
it
don't.
work?
I think it reflects light off of the reflective surface.
Oh.
Yep. And
Wow.
with the matte film on most TVs now,
It's not reflective
it might
enough.
not work. I don't know. You know what? I'll have to ask. I actually have a working NES. It's in Massachusetts with the light gun. I might have to ask my brother to try it out and see if he can get it working on his flat screen. 'Cause
Yeah, I don't
I'm
think it
curious
works.
to see. But yeah, the light gun, man, that was. It's good shit. All right. Let's see, how are we doing on time? We're just about out of it. Is there anything else in the rundown you guys want to touch on before we go to picks? Kind of hit the big stories in here.
Oh, is there going to be a new Google Glass? I missed that.
Well,
one.
it's really a rumor, a reportedly. Okay. The short version being that Google reportedly working on a headset with augmented reality very similar to HoloLens. So I don't think there's a ton of news there.
Makes sense.
I would guarantee Google's got all kinds of stuff in their labs, and this, is not surprising at all.
All right, then I think we hit all the high points.
Sold! All right, then we're going to move on to picks each week on the show. We each pick something cool that we like, sometimes tech-related, sometimes not, but either way, we recommend you go check it out.
Can I go first?
Are you kidding me? Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of Nintendo, I picked a couple months ago this documentary. I think it's just called Smash, although you should look at the pics, I don't remember, on YouTube about competitive Super Smash Bros. Players. It was really good. And this weekend, as I was sort of, in a weird jet-lag state, I had the opportunity to watch the Super Smash Bros. World Championships live. And oh my god, it was in this stadium in Las Vegas where, like, the MMA fights are. So there's this massive stadium with this huge stage and these two guys in front of a CRT TV playing Super Smash Bros. Melee. In the last game, so there's this guy, he's in the documentary, both of these people are. He's gotten second place at pretty much every tournament ever. He's a perpetual second placer, and this is like the biggest tournament you can play in this game. So this was his big chance to get first, and then the previous year's champion, the reigning champion, was also playing in the grand finals. And the person who always got second was from the losers bracket, so for him to win, he had to win 2 best-of-5 games in a row. If the other guy only had to do 1 best-of-5. Apparently this is like a common thing. So, spoiler alert, this guy finally won his first place at this tournament, and it was insane. Like, the commentators are screaming. They're like jumping, like jumps out of his chair at one point, like one of the guys playing. It was so intense. And he won with Jigglypuff, which is like not the character you would expect. It was so much fun to watch. I was really surprised. I mean, not really surprised, but I was kind of looking forward to watching it, and I had even more fun than I thought I would. So I put in the show notes a 30-second clip of the point where the guy who had to win 2 games in a row won the first game coming from behind after he was down. This like, insane comeback to get the chance to do it all over again. So it was really cool. So that's that. Also, while I was camping last week, I read this book called Outposts, which is this journalist quest to travel to every remaining part of the British Empire, which there's a lot of. I had no idea. I thought it was like Northern Ireland, British Virgin Islands. That's it. No, there's a lot of crazy islands, especially in the Atlantic Ocean, that still belong to the UK, and they have some crazy stories. So Outpost, you can get that on Amazon and on Kindle.
Very cool. Since we're trying to be all awesome and live and stuff, I just pasted links for both of those into the Facebook chat. So if you're watching live, nice. You can check those out. And of course, the links will be on our website as always. I will say I caught on ESPN2, believe it or not, the Street Fighter Championship.
Oh, that was right before this.
Over the weekend, and I found it...
Or right...
What?
Right after, rather. Sorry, that was right after the Super Smash Brothers one.
And it was the same thing where it's, like a giant stadium, and there's just like 2 guys sitting there playing, and I found it immensely boring. Because honestly, the problem I found was that, because what's the theory behind esports versus just watching your friend playing a game, right? They're supposed to be really good, talent with commentators on a big stage, right? I found none of that added anything because I didn't know who the players were. I didn't like the commentators. It was really, it could have been YouTube playing Street Fighter.
Sean, I would love it if you watched this whole thing from beginning to end, because that was the grand finals. That was one thing I noticed, was that the commentators were really good, and I watched that whole 6-hour documentary. I've watched some games before, and only this time did someone finally explain what some of these words meant. They're like, oh, this is a thing he just did called teching, and that's when you can kind of predict where the player's going to go by reading the animation. So, and I was like, oh. And I watched, there was another game on before it, I forget what it was, but like the traditional 2D, like, not 2D, but kind of 2D, like fixed sort of like very blocky looking fighter games, very... I've never liked playing those. I've never liked watching them. Like, I watched some of the Street Fighter. I was like, okay. For whatever reason, Super Smash Bros. Feels really like... It's like the difference between basketball and baseball for me. Like, you can watch a basketball game, you're like, yep, you gotta get the ball in the basket. That's like, I can understand when they're doing that well, and I can understand when they're not doing it well.
Right.
Whereas you look at baseball, you're like, well, I know when they hit the ball correctly after it happened, but I have no way of predicting going into any of these things. Like, so, and I think Super Smash Bros. Is much more intuitive of a game to watch.
But that wasn't even the problem necessarily I had, because Street Fighter, at least with that example, like, you kind of get when you're punching the guy, one guy's punching better, like, I didn't need to know the combos to know who was winning. The problem I had was I had nothing invested in it. The thing about football is I've been cheering for the same team my whole life. They've been around for 80 whatever years. I've got t-shirts with their name on it. Go Pats. With these guys, there was, again, it could have been YouTube playing. I had nothing invested in it. So while it was interesting, I couldn't get excited. That was...
So I agree with you, and I think that, again, I think Super Smash Bros. Does a good job of it. There's a lot of crazy, like literally crazy people who play this game. There's this guy who only gets second. There's 2 crazy Swedish people. There's this slightly Asperger's guy who is just like an absolute machine. There's this crazy guy named Mango who just like, he either like gets first place and beats everyone decisively, or he comes in like 27th. Because he did something crazy and refused to change it.
Risky player.
Oh yeah, like, and the risky player is so much fun to watch because he's going to do something. Even when he's winning, he might do something crazy just to get the crowd pumped up. So there are personalities, and like this guy finally getting first place after trying so hard. You're right. It gives you a lot more. It makes you more excited about it.
Yeah. Good. All right. We'll check.
That was enough about my.
We'll continue on. Colby, why don't you... I'm actually kind of curious now, because I clicked and tried to figure out what your pick was, and I failed, so I would like you to explain what your pick is.
Sure. So my pick is this app called Gyroscope, and I've been using it for a couple weeks now. It's basically like the Apple Health app, but like more interesting. So it like takes your health data, and you can connect like... I don't know, fitness apps, like you can connect Fitbit or like Strava or anything like that you use. And it basically just shows you kind of cool like graphs about stuff. Much more interesting visualizations of like what's going on in your life than you get with something like Apple Health. For example, one of the I guess graphics is like if you went on a run or went for a bike ride or something, it'll show you how many donuts you burned in that activity. But I've been using it for a little while. Oh, it also brings in your rescue time data, which is a thing that like logs what like sites and programs you spend time on in your computer to see like, I don't know, if you're wasting time or anything like that, or like what things you waste what things you spend your time on in the computer. But in any case, I think if you like have a Fitbit or you use any of those apps like that, it's a much nicer interface for those things than than some of the others too. It's more comprehensive. Like it can take in a lot of stuff. So, yeah, that's my pick.
Really pretty.
Oh yeah, it's very nice looking too. That it certainly helps.
Yeah, that's neat.
Their website is pretty impressive.
I like it. I feel like it's very Tony Stark, where it's like I want to start touching and flicking things. It's got that style to it. It's neat.
Yeah.
That's good. And I'm always looking for new ways to combine all the disparate stuff I have. So
yeah, to just like give your data away to random people. It's great.
So they always know what you're doing and where you are. Yeah.
Right.
It's fantastic. Check it out. Gyroscope, gyrosco.pe is the website. So you can check that out. Very good. All right. Well, that must mean that I'm last. And I'm going to pick a book. I'm not even going to go with technology. I'm going to go with a book. It's a really fun one I just read called Console Wars, keeping with our video game theme and sticking with the fine folks at the Nintendo Corporation. Console Wars tells the story of Sega in the 90s, which, of course, with the Genesis and the Dreamcast and the sort of the things Sega did in the 90s, how they rose to, Nintendo super dominant in the 80s. Going into the 90s, Sega rose to meet 50% market share with them and overtake Nintendo for a very short period of time and then fell right back to earth. One of the best business history books I think I've ever read. It's exceptionally well written. And even if you're not a big fan of video games, it is a very interesting story of the tech industry at the time. They talk a lot about going to CES. That was back when they had 2 CESs a year. It's also really interesting. As someone who works for a company that is owned overseas, they talk a lot about working with Sega of Japan versus Sega of America. Just a really, really interesting, fun book. I read it on some airplane rides and greatly enjoyed it. So Console Wars available for paperback and Kindle. I recommend it.
Sweet.
Fun for the whole family. All right, cool. Again, links to all the picks will be on our website, dontpanic.io. You should go there, and here's why. Okay? It's not just any website. And we could have made any website. And I say we, I mean you two. They could have made any website, and they did. They made a great website, and you should go there. It's got no pressure on you two. Go there.
Well, so a fun fact about the dontpanic.io is that it's currently like a ticking time bomb because it turns out that the Facebook APIs we used to build it 3 years ago have like since been deprecated or are now being phased out. So we have like 2 weeks to like upgrade the login before we can log in anymore.
No pressure. Oh my goodness. Well,
it's why you don't rely on third-party services.
I think it was Aristotle who once wrote "Sucks to be you." So I'm sorry to hear that. Well, go to our website while it still works. Dontpanic.io.
It'll continue working. We just might not be able to post new content,
which is something we do so rarely that shouldn't be a problem. Well, good. Well, at least while you're there, you can check out all our past episodes, audio and video, and links to check us out on iTunes, subscribe via RSS, and to like us on Facebook. Of course, Don't Panic Show on Twitter. We're streaming live on Facebook, and I want to thank everybody currently watching and who has watched on Facebook. This is our most highly watched live episode, at least consistently, throughout the show, between 7 and 9 viewers, which is a lot for us live. So, because usually it's like 1. So, Dan's mom. So, I think it's really great that everyone checked us out. Thanks for chatting with us on Facebook. I think this was fun. I want us to... Well, we'll keep trying Facebook Live for a while. It was really excellent for people to join us. We do it live Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific, at facebook.com/don'tpanicshow. We will not be back next week because I will not be here. And the following week, I'm going to leave it up to you two because I will not be there, but I will be back in time to get an edit together. So if you two want to do a show... That's on you. I won't, but it'll be old news by next week. But the following week, which is I think August 1st or the 31st or the 30th, right in there. It's up to you guys. If you want to do a show, you're welcome, and All right. You guys can talk about that.
I'll surprise you.
But if you're looking for something else to check out, you should check out our exciting Dungeons & Dragons podcast that will be back this week with new episode GameNights.tv is the place you can get all our past episodes, get caught up, and this week we'll have new episodes for you, so get psyched about that. Anything else, gentlemen?
I'm psyched about that.
I am. Oh my god, it's been like a month and a half. I'm so jealous to be back. Now I got to go listen because I've completely forgotten about everything that's happened. But that's
Fair point. That's a good idea, actually.
Well, you can't listen to the end, Cole, because if you remember, we had our secret meeting with the Dragon Cult that that you were excluded from.
Oh no!
So you'll have to tune in to find out what happens.
The drama continues.
It sure does. And I think on that note, we'll have to conclude. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. We greatly appreciate you tuning in. And we'll absolutely see you next time for even more tech news here on Don't Panic.